All right. Good morning. Welcome to podcast number 12, Lathrop Mortgage Podcast, our weekly recap.
That's number 11?
Well, this will be our number 11,
Oh, okay.
but it's the 12th because I've had one guest so far. So I actually was able to get the 11th podcast done, and I'm just going to include that as Lathrop Mortgage Podcast because I don't know if I'm going to be having a guest often enough to have a separate podcast.
Sounds good. I think it's great to get other viewpoints out there in the market.
It is, but I'm also excited to do our weekly recap every Friday once we get to it. And today, instead of doing a weekly recap, because, we had some news, but I feel like we kind of talked about some of these things a little bit already. So, rates are up and down, and that's not that interesting. But our topic today is actually going to kind of focus on how to pick a loan officer or how to pick a lender. So you have all these different companies to choose from, and within the different companies, you have different individuals that could help you. Although that number is reducing by about 70% over the course of this year. So 600,000 some odd loan officers in America is going to be down to around 200,000 or so.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think this actually may be more of a relevant topic than we realized when we decided to talk about it, because your mortgage provider, if you're watching this, your previous mortgage provider may not be a mortgage provider anymore.
I'm sure by the end of 23, it's going to be a big adjustment, which we've seen happening. The volume is down from 22, and 22 is down from the crazy years. So it's a different time, and people are making decisions, getting out of our industry and so forth. But lenders, I think the topic you hit on is how do you make a decision on selecting a lender or an individual loan officer? Lenders are not all the same. I feel there's a lot of information out there on the web to learn about mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of it is personal recommendation, referral. I think that's huge. But you've got to match up with your lender, their personality, their understanding, feel comfortable with them. And I think that's the big thing. I think you're making the largest decision of your life for this investment, for most people. And you want to me, like I said, a lot of information on the internet, but you really got to take the time to go in and meet with this individual. And that's why I prefer local lenders, because I feel that they know the market you're looking at, and they may be able to help you move from another state if they're licensed in other states, or to move to another state so you feel that reassurance. But build that rapport and understanding so you know them, they know you, and you can perform quickly and you feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I'll add a little caveat here. The reason we talk about local lenders is not necessarily because we have had bad experience with our other lenders, but we've done loans out of state where we're not the local lender, and it is a little more challenging, and you have to do a little more diligence. And, if you're local to the market or experienced in whatever market that you're dealing with, I would say that's the key. So if you're a Washington guy, but you do a ton of stuff in Arizona, you're probably experienced enough to know how to get around in Arizona. That's a little caveat I would slip in there to say, as long as you're experienced in your market, that's kind of the qualifier.
The nice thing that is the case with our lender, I guess I can't speak about everybody else, but is as quickly as we can perform in Washington, we can typically perform that quickly as well in these other states. And all the loans I've done in Arizona, the comments I've always gotten from escrow is, wow, that was quick. And I'm thinking, what do you guys put up with normally? So, but that's on our end. We always want to perform on time, which is the key to keep everybody happy. But it's good to know that. And those are the things you want to know is what can your lender do? And you may only do this once. It's your first time. You don't know good service from bad service till it's too late. That's why you want to, recommendations, referrals, personal, connections, but take the time to go in and meet the lender. Maybe it's a weekend, You want somebody you can call in the evening, or you can reach on the weekend. That might be your only free time. And these things are important because everything's important when it comes to making this decision,
Well, and the reason it's so important is because loan officer's service isn't necessarily guaranteed. So just because you've gone to a financial professional doesn't necessarily mean they gave you the right answer, right?
Yeah.
As scary as that is to say, for example, and this is really embarrassing, but I'll share the story. I had a loan file where we had two borrowers, and the underwriter said, hey, this loan is approved if you get all this stuff from borrower number 2. I got all the stuff from borrower number 1. And so we're all ready to close, and my underwriter's like, I can't approve this. Where's the stuff from number 2? And I was like, oh, what? I thought it was for number 1. So we had to scramble and get all the stuff last minute, and it was really uncomfortable. And I learned a lesson from that early in my career just how to be more detailed and how to read these things. And it was a learning lesson that was really uncomfortable for my client, uncomfortable for the agent involved, and really uncomfortable for myself. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes a mistake like that to learn a big lesson on how to move forward in your career, which is luckily what happened for me. And, that's never happened again. But that's what we talk about when you need to choose the right lender. Those things can happen.
Well, experience is everything. I think that you learn the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, in this business, and you learn how to work within certain markets, which I think is another advantage dealing with a lender that's familiar with your marketplace, how offers are done in your marketplace, how sellers are responding, currently what's going on. That's huge. The internet is great, but it's not giving you the best service, in my opinion. Price is one thing, but I've had transactions where agents won't take offers or approval letters from out-of-state lenders because they can't deliver on the time frame. And that's what seller typically wants to know is, when can this transaction close and how quickly can you get it done? And those are the things that make a difference, but ask those questions of your lender. Go down there, and make sure you feel comfortable, run examples, what's going on, what's a typical closing time frame, so you know all the fundamentals, and make sure they're connected with your agent. They're having this communication. It's not a one-way street.
So maybe we can create a quick list of questions that you might ask a mortgage professional to vet them out, and then we'll attach it in the comments, or I'll include it with this video somehow. But how would a non-mortgage person go about picking a mortgage person? Because they don't know, like we know all the metrics to say, hey, doesn't really sound like you quite know your details there. That loan program, only has these features. We can see that from a mile away, after we have experience in this career, but the average standard person shopping with us might not have that. So what would your advice be to them on how to pick it? Is just based on personality? Because then you run the risk of meeting a really great salesman that can just talk the talk and build relationship. But, unless they have a good team to support them, that might not actually be what you want.
I think a couple things is, how long has this organization been around? For one, has it been 2 years? Kind of questionable, has it been a while? So they're that kind of thing. And then, who did you hear? How did you hear about them? And do you have a reference on who to talk to? What's the agent think about them? How'd you pick your real estate agent, or have you done that first? A lot of times, you want to be prepared. The market has really changed due to technology. Most clients get pre-approved now before they even look at a house. Most, which is what they should do. So some do that before they even pick a real estate agent. So, but if you're fortunate enough to have those things done, then your agent's going to have some references, I'm sure. But check out, your family will and those kinds of things, because it's personality. Yes, you want to understand and get along, but you can detect the knowledge base and the information, what tools they have available, what products. Is it just, I'm sorry, we only do conventional loans? No, we do FHA, USDA, state bond, all those things, because depending on what kind of product you're going to need, know what's available, but have the sit down in person with them. I think you got to look at the company, and the loan officer is only good as the company, what they can do. And then how many, is that company doing loans in that marketplace? Yes. Are they active? Can they get your loan done on time? Those things, the reassurance, those things I think about. I've looked at, when I was shopping and doing loans back in the day, I like dealing local. I like to be able to walk downtown and talk to the person that was going to be doing my loan. Now loans are sold and all that kind of stuff. It's great, but until you get to the point where you got 800 credit scores and you got 20% plus down and your income is not a question, slam dunk, you really need somebody to guide you and coach you through this process.
Yeah, I think that can make a big difference on getting the right setup and just being shown a couple of different examples to really make the proper choice. Now, here's an interesting question I have. If you know a loan officer that's referring a real estate agent, but you also know a real estate agent, a different one that's referring a loan officer, I guess you just have to navigate those personal relationships of your own network and pick the provider that's right for you. But so that's what I would say to that, I guess, to answer my own question, because I wouldn't say that any real estate or lender is more professional than the other. It's just going to truly depend on who you're talking to.
Well, they all have performance records, but the key thing is, I think the number one thing for both the lender and the real estate agent is they're listening to what you're asking. You tell them, I want to buy in the $300,000 price range, let's just say, for an example. And they start saying, well, we got some great homes over here from 4 to 5, and you really need to do this. And you're like, did you hear what I said? I want to do this, or I want to get pre-approved. In our world, what range do you want to buy into? Well, we're going to show you what you can afford to do according to the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you to decide where you want to buy. Just because you're qualified for 500 doesn't mean you have to spend 500, and that type of thing. So, and have that good conversation. But if you find the home you want, know you're able to go there if you need to. And here's what the payments will be. Be educated in those things. I think agents, and just make sure they listen, because there's the ones that do are fantastic.
So if you were going to be shopping for a mortgage lender, would you go get pre-approved at 4 different places, see who's got the best quote and pick based on that? Or would you call 4 different places and have introductory phone calls or chats and kind of do a personality assessment and then decide who you want to make application with from there?
I'd make 4 different phone calls and visit 4 different lenders. I mean, like at Evergreen, we can do a soft pull on your credit, which is huge. So you don't get inundated by the credit bureaus and everybody else that can buy those lists in the marketplace. That's huge. Every lender doesn't do that, and especially if you do something online. Once you do it, boom, there you go. And
because the thing I often run into when I'm talking to a client, that they'd be surprised that I'm willing to talk to them about some numbers without pulling their credit. Of course, I'll say, hey, this is a ballpark. This can be totally wrong. But based on what you're telling me, it sounds like it could be this, and we should be in this type of a ballpark. A lot of lenders are going to say, hey, I won't even talk to you until you pull your credit. And that's kind of like a little bit of a sales tactic and a little bit of, that really is brass tacks, because we can't give accurate information without seeing a credit report. But I think you can have an initial conversation. And if that loan officer is not even willing to talk to you until you make app or pull your credit or anything, that for me would be a big yellow flag. I wouldn't say that's a red flag, but that'd be a yellow flag.
Yeah, I think the key is are they willing to talk to, again, listen to what you're saying or asking, and just to get you comfortable, because you don't have to rush into this. Just because the market's so tight in inventory, you need to be prepared when you make an offer, but you don't have to rush into the process. But get that part going, now, but with someone that you're comfortable with, and you may deal with somebody that's, that you moved here from Utah and you got a lender back there that can do your loan in Washington. That's great, but just make sure, then your focus is the agent you're working with out here, so they know the marketplace and so forth. Yeah, those things, it's just take the time. I wouldn't go get pre-approved, just see how each, because they're going to be the same, how they really get you through this more or less, but it's going to beat up your credit score. It's going to be painful if they don't, opt out on a couple things and so forth. But yeah, I'd go in and get that the comfort zone, because you're only going to do this most cases initially, when you're buying a home one time. You won't know the service quality until you experience it. And that's the unfortunate part. We can coach people through that, for that. They just go, well, hey, these guys got this rate. Great. Does your agent think they can close in 30 days? And they go, no. Well, I don't care. Well, it does make a difference, because performance is everything when you get to make that shot. Because unfortunately in this market, it's challenging, because you've got to, you get one shot. So you got to close quickly. Your lender's got to perform. And if you don't, you lose your house. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Some people think I'll just get an extension. Well, not every seller, some sellers might say, hey, you wasted my time. I'm putting it back on the market. Your 30 days are up.
Yeah.
And most sellers are probably going to do an extension in most cases, but some won't. And they'll just say, hey, this isn't what we thought it was, or whatever. I actually saw a listing. Somebody on Facebook posted this. The listing went back on the market, and the comments from the realtor says, back on market because lender is a liar.
Ooh.
Which probably will get pulled from the MLS. But what happened there, I'm sure somebody went in to buy this house that they're pre-approved, and then they found out they actually weren't pre-approved, and they had to put the house back on the market. And that happens.
Yeah. The term pre-approved means getting through the system, have an underwriter signed off on it. And the additional security we have is our Security Plus at Evergreen, because we give a certificate with that guarantees that seller, if we don't close, you're getting $5,000. Now, if that deal didn't close, that seller got $5,000 and put it back on the market if it was going through us. We're not going to do that. We've run them through. I mean, we're going to do that if they don't close. But bottom line is, we know they can close. Otherwise, we wouldn't put that security up there.
So now when it comes back to picking your lender and picking your real estate agent, does your loan officer and your real estate agent need to know each other when you get started in the process?
No, but one better be calling the other. It depends on who you pick first.
They should interact with each other, but they don't necessarily have to know each other when you get started.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why is it so important for them to talk to each other at all? Because isn't one doing your financing and the other is just helping you negotiate the house?
The mortgage is one side of it. You're one component of the purchase. The agent's involved from beginning to the end of that purchase. And they're from the inspections to title to escrow to deposits, you name it. And so is the lender, but the agent's one that's handling all those moving parts. We get you through the process. We prepare your closing documents and fund the loan. They have to work hand in hand, and timing is crucial on those things, especially in this market. I hate to keep saying in this market, but it's true. So yeah, they need to get to know each other so you know that how each person works. I make it a point to go to every closing, and there's a handful of agents that do that. You know, the ones that do, I love them because they're there to answer any question for the client at the final hour. Most of them, if they can't make it, they'll be available by phone or something if something comes up, because other things do happen in this market. I understand that. And but that's key. So everything is as they agreed to at the end as they thought it would be in the beginning.
And here's another question I have for you. Can a good real estate agent make up for a bad loan officer? Or can a bad loan officer can a good loan officer make up for a bad real estate agent on the flip side?
I don't think a good agent can make up for a bad loan officer unless they switch it. But I mean, if you have an attentive real estate agent, you have a very attentive lender. Yes, the lender can get you through the process and make sure those things are happening because you're dealing with title and escrow as well, because we need that on our side. So I think they can make up for it. Yeah, and make sure that all the questions are answered. The only thing we can't do is give you the keys.
Well, I would say that one cannot make up for the other because there's interactions you have to have with a seller that a loan officer isn't really licensed or covered. That's not really their expertise of negotiation. Their expertise is looking at mortgage pricing, quoting the proper program, and helping explain that. We help get you through the transaction financially, but the real estate agent really has taken you from offer stage all the way through signing those final documents stage. So I would say we're there for the whole part, and so is the agent, but we just kind of interact a little bit on different sides.
I'd say yes and no. I think in the case of, it boils down to what's the service you got during your transaction, and you can get through it with somebody not doing a great job. Obviously, in the time frame I've been in it, I've seen awesome agents, and I've seen some that they write up the deal and they show up at closing, and appraisal gets done and there weren't any work orders, so it was fine. But I mean, there's differences. But you're right. It takes the involvement on both sides to do it the way it should be done. But in the situations where if you had to make up for it, it's challenging. But hopefully you can make that assessment when you meet somebody up front and ask them, how many loans have you done? How long have you been doing this? What do you think of the market? Whatever questions you have, that don't ever leave a question unasked. Make sure you ask whatever. There's no stupid question.
So it's okay for the customer to interview their loan officer a little bit and ask them some questions about their skill set and say, hey, what are you proficient at? What's your niche, so to speak, or whatever?
Well, or just the straight question, even if they're referred to them, ask the questions that you're concerned about. Maybe not their history or their performance, but hey, how do I get a loan? What should I be looking at? What am I qualified for? The things that are important to them. What we do may not be important to them. What's important to them is them not having any bumps in the road.
So maybe they should ask their loan officer, hey, how do you get approved with a 637 credit score? Not, hey, how many podcasts have you done?
Yeah, correct.
Because they're going to vet the loan officer for their scenario, not for that loan officer's, how are you doing in your career?
Exactly, because all of our all of our clients do not have the same credit score, the same employment information, the same assets, the same ratios. Everybody is different. Everybody's an individual, even from one borrower with a co-borrower. They're all different. And so you got to work, what are the tools you can utilize to put the best package together for them, and that's where experience pays off. and in the market you're in, knowing that, hey, I want to go after this for this house. Well, that's kind of crazy. You should really be I think your agent
And that's where I think loan officer and agent need to stay in their lane, because the agent should really know what's the price on this property. Loan officer will have an opinion, right? We do this all the time. We see a lot of appraisals. We have a general sense of what the market is doing price-wise, but not quite this to the same level of how a good agent should be able to understand pricing.
Oh yeah, because we're not real estate agents. I might play one on TV. No, just kidding. I was earlier in my career, which is what got me into lending. But that's when you learn all the tools and you appreciate the good agents out there, because there's so much work. People think, oh, I'll just do it myself. I'll sell myself. Are you kidding me? There's so many. You want all these people coming through your home. You're going to guide them through there. You want the home inspector coming through telling you what you need to do before. All those things you want to do. There's so much to be done when you're buying or selling real estate. You need to be aware of, and that's why. And a lender would know those details too, what to be aware of. We're not the agents, but, we do know how agents perform and who is successful in our marketplace, and it's great to work with them, so it's just important to take the time. But boy, it's like I always say, get pre-approved early. Take the time to be comfortable when you get your mortgage process going and selecting your agent. So when you're ready, they're ready, and you guys can all move together, as a team.
Yeah, no, I think that's crucial. I think the team aspect is huge. I think the real estate professional and the mortgage professional absolutely need to talk to each other, but it's not required that they know each other beforehand. And I think that they're definitely two separate things. So it's not like one overwrites the other. They really do need to work together.
Absolutely. And I think new relationships can be created out of that, and strengths, and work for the future in this market. Because I think in both industries, real estate and mortgage, are both being adjusted this year, and the people that are there need to work together and keep their strengths up, because that's what's necessary in this market. Because it's a unique market. It's like, I still think it's a great time to buy a home, because if you're qualified to buy in this market, you're in good shape. And then it's just feeling comfortable doing that, because we all believe in the future we'll see a little bit better scenario out there, because we're in just a different phase right now. But those that are ready to buy and want to get into that process, great time to do it, because we can get the loans through quickly. I think any lender should be able to do that. So yeah, but I guess the terms like Boy Scouts, be prepared, and that's numero uno. Because don't go drive by that open house on a weekend just because the weather's nice and go, that's it, and then you got to do everything backwards. You can still do it, but it's certainly not as comfortable.
So one of the whole ideas behind this podcast was to, have guests on here, as we can. And originally I thought it'd be cool to kind of build up a database or a network of real estate agents in the area. We would maybe interview them, ask them a few questions, and then viewers could watch that and maybe get a sense of who's out there that they could work with. Do you think a podcast is a good way for a viewer to start to get to know somebody? We've done 11 now, and we're kind of sharing ourselves. I feel like we've been pretty authentic, and you maybe get a little nervous here and there presenting, but pretty much I think we're coming across the way that we are for the most part, it seems like.
Well, you are what you are. It's hard to be somebody you're not. I think a podcast is a great opportunity to see something, but I think the next step is to follow up, make that phone call, shoot an email, whatever you do these days, and reach out, connect with them, and ask them the questions, and hopefully you find out, it's a match, and figure that out. And so yes, I think it's a great way. Otherwise, how do people know who you are in this market? We're finally recovering, well, hopefully, from COVID and getting back out there and doing things, but it's still not the same marketplace it was pre-COVID. People just aren't running around like we used to, and we're seeing COVID issues raise back up. So I'm sure we'll see some other limitations in our near future. But no, reach out when you get the information that's out there. Follow up on it. That's step one. Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, well, we'll have to combine like a little, cheat sheet of how to go, the quick steps of how to buy a house. But so far, talk to a few mortgage professionals and real estate agents before you pick one to work with. And then if you have a couple loan officers that seem good, maybe you do get a couple applications going, and you can compare them together and see, you not only comparing their pricing to each other, but the continuation of those conversations. You might have a great first phone call, and then they never send you a quote. You're like, oh, well, I really like that guy, but he never sent me a quote. So I guess I got to work with one of these other two guys of the three because they actually followed up. So that's where you kind of start slow and you get into it. It's not a whole, hey, we do everything in one day.
No, it's get comfortable, check it out, see who you match up with, and make that decision on your own and go from there. I think that's,
the results of that, we're seeing, obviously you can do it any number of ways, but the result of getting a little prepared ahead of time is you're just going to have a smoother transaction, hopefully less stress, and you're going to feel like you know what you're doing and that you're controlling the situation versus, oh, well, my real estate agent said, talk to Bill. Bill said, do a conventional loan. So I guess I'm doing a conventional loan, but I don't really know why. And I don't really know what else I could have done. That's not really the position I would want to be in. I would want to have a little more education and communication all around and say, have a few options and do my diligence saying, hey, thanks for the recommendations. I'll vet these out a little bit too and see where we end up.
Yeah. I mean, like they come in and even if they have 20% down and 800 credit scores, and make sure you ask them if they've been in the military, right? Because they have VA eligibility, or maybe they're going to go buy out somewhere in the rural in looking at USDA. Show them the products, then they can make the decision. Our recommendation will be what's most cost effective. I'm always a numbers guy, and what's the most affordable, inexpensive way for you to go, wisest choice, dollars out of pocket. I always lean toward that direction. May not be what they're thinking of. They may say, well, you know what? I don't want to put 20% down. I want to save this because my son's going to be going to college and going to do this or whatever. Choices are going to make because even though the numbers we see on paper, hey, this is perfect for this, that's why the conversation is huge. So get that information out there and share everything with them.
Well, and I would always say share them the opposite of what they're thinking about in some cases. So like the guy that wants to put 20% down, show them a 5% down. I've had some clients that say, oh, wow, that payment's actually not that bad. And obviously the down payment is so much better. Sweet. I wasn't even thinking about that. Now I'm going to think they still might not choose that, but at least you can say, hey, here's what this actually looks like. I know you're not thinking about it, but let me show you a couple of options and we'll continue our conversation.
Yeah. That's huge because I think one of the number one myths of buying a home today is you have to put 20% down. And so that's why it's huge to talk to somebody and have them walk you through the scenarios but that's where you can take the time, up front before you're ready to jump into the process. And so you got to, get rolling, but don't.
And I would say take advantage of that because you don't necessarily get to call and talk to your doctor or your dentist and see who you want to go to. You just have to go to them and see if you like them. Within financial services, you can actually talk to your professional, use their service a little bit, pick their brain and see what their expertise is, maybe get some insight or tips. It's all free of charge. And then you get to pick who you want to actually do your transaction with.
Yep.
That's not something that you get if you're going to try to pick a lawyer, they're billable hours to have all those conversations, I'm sure.
Well, and even lawyers will say that too. You got to get in and talk to us about our experience. A lot of times the initial conversation is free.
Okay.
But then you don't know how that performance is unless you just read about them. Again, there's where your strong referrals come from people who have used legal professionals in certain situations. Who's good at this? That's experience will pay that off too. So same thing in lending, real estate, the people that have weathered the storm. It doesn't mean you have to be old like me. They can be young like you. But it's working around people that have experienced and know how to get from point A to point B. And you can be a novice in this business and be very good. And so but get to talk to your person and find out your comfort zone and roll from there.
So our gold standard recommendation is going to be, if you have referrals, vet them out, make those phone calls, but always try to talk to at least a couple of people and do a personality check at the same time you're doing the experience check and just see who you like working with. And then then try to get some numbers and kind of filter yourself down to the single choice from there.
Yeah, you may talk to one person and boom, it's right there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got to call 5 or anything like that. It's right there. But call them, talk to them, and make sure they listen to what you're saying. And don't let them direct you to an area to say, oh, we got this great thing. We have some great things, but it may not be right for you. But in your situation, this works or that works. So that's what's valuable. But make that call up front, talk to them, and then you're going to know right off. You don't need to talk to 4 people. You're going to know within 1 or 2
Yeah, and it's not saying you're having 30-minute phone calls with everybody. I mean, you might get into a 30-minute conversation with somebody you like, but I've had some conversations where there's nothing to talk about. Their questions are short. My explanations are brief. It's a 5 minutes, and I'm like, well, maybe I could have done something differently, but also maybe not, because I'm not going to randomly start talking about unless we get to those conversations, I'm not going to fake the relationship building. And sometimes they just come up and sometimes they don't. And you can kind of listen to your gut on those, I think.
Well, and a lot of it boils down to, like you mentioned way back about pulling credit. All we can do is give advice up to that point on different products. If your credit score is X, then you can do this, this, and this. Until you get to that point of comfort to pull the credit and move forward, then you can really give all the legitimate, concrete information, because initially you're just stating it. You can't really back it up. So those things there's key, but that's where you're going to make those interviews to make the decision to move forward. And move forward with one lender. Don't move forward with two, because the other one will figure it out. And it's not a pretty picture, but if you change lenders, that's possible, because you ran into something, there's reasons, or somebody didn't do something they thought they would. But
Typically, though, you want to pick a professional and try to see the transaction through and just say, hey, we've made our decision. Let's go get this closed. And if it goes poorly, it's going to be over soon, hopefully, and you're done. But hopefully it goes great and you made the right decision. All your conversations paid off and you picked the right person to work with.
Yeah, it's a big decision. It's a big process buying a home, whether it's your first home or your fifth home. You want it to go smoothly, and all you want to have to worry about is moving.
And we like doing this. So when we're talking to you on the phone, if you call us, we should be in a good mood and it's good. And it shouldn't be like, oh, what do you want? And you're not a bother to us. It's a pleasure to talk to our customers 99% of the time. There's always that one guy that doesn't like what you have to say. But yeah, that's my takeaway from kind of what I'm.
And the thing to understand too is there's schedules. So, you want to get back as quick as you can. And just because you're in an appointment doesn't mean you don't want to talk to them. So give us that time. Don't call one and say, oh, they didn't call me back in 5 minutes. I'm calling somebody else. Be respectful of that, because, people are busy and have schedules. Just like most clients work during the day and have kids or families or whatever. So evenings might be the time they want to talk best or most convenient, or weekends. Those are the things that, we're available to do that. And that's important because a lot of lenders aren't.
I'm really good with the evening, night, and weekend client. It's the 6 a.m. client that I'm struggling with a little bit still.
Yeah. Well, no, everybody's got a schedule. And I think you being a new dad, it's evident, just like most of our clients have small children and they're in school's in. So their mornings are all tied up getting ready to school. Their afternoons are tied up if they're home, and their evenings doing homework, whatever, and dinner and you name it. So it might be 9 o'clock till they get a chance to talk about their finances or whatever else they're working on. Or maybe they got to wait till Saturday,
And it may even be at 10 minutes at 9 o'clock. It doesn't, like we said, it's not necessarily all these big hour-long conversations. Yeah. It can just be, hey, we're checking in. What's the market doing? Do we need to lock our rate? Or we're making these offers, whatever. It can be quick.
Yep. Then you got emails and text messages and communication, all the forms after that.
That's right.
But making the initial time frame. But being available when that question pops up, just like you want your pediatrician available when you need a question answered. Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Being available and feeling comfortable.
And speaking of availability, we should wrap this up because we're right at the top of the hour, and good timing here.
Yep. And, enjoy Purple Friday. Huskies playing tomorrow night in the desert at 7 o'clock. Got to rock on with that one and root those Mariners on to, if they can claw and scrap their way to the playoffs. It's going to be an exciting weekend for that. Let's hope it keeps going like it did last night.
Yeah, we got some good PNW sports ahead this weekend, so definitely a lot to watch.
You got it. Go Dogs.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.